Today, we've got a good friend of mine. Matt Butler with Pair PEO, and I've known Matt for 3 or 4 years now, maybe longer. We have pre-COVID, I guess 6 years ago. So we have similar taste in music, which is always a good place for people to start off at. And then he has a similar approach in the way he works with clients, and really making sure that he puts them first. So that works out really well for us as well, because that's kind of how we like to operate too. So I've known him the entire time in the PEO world. So Matt, thanks for joining us on stage today. I'm excited to talk about PEOs and small businesses.
You may be the only one.
Are you excited to talk about PEOs and small businesses? Oh, you gotta flip the switch.
There we go.
Are you blue or are you green? Are we both green?
I'm green.
Like Luke Skywalker?
Green pill.
Yeah. So.
All right, there we go. Like, you guys can hear me, but the people across the world on YouTube, I want to make sure they can hear me too. So
they got you.
They got me.
So Matt, do me a favor. I still say the word PEO a lot, and you probably do as well. And a fair chunk of people that I say that to stare at me like I have two heads. So kind of bring us up to speed on what a PEO is.
It's a really broad brush, but first of all, thank you, and thank your team for bringing us all together. And can we just say, welcome spring? Finally, it's been feels like it's been cold since Thanksgiving. Go Hornets.
Go Hornets.
Hornets, yeah, there you go. Okay.
Here's to tripping.
Huh?
Here's to tripping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever you needed to win, right? We all want to win.
He fell on his foot.
Yeah. Things happen.
It happens.
It's
better than you flop one way, you flop the other way. But yeah, thank you, William, for having me. So, my experience in PEO has been interesting. I used a PEO as an administrator at one point in time. First half of my career, so you guys kind of get the context, was in the tech space, was running a managed service provider at one point in time here in Charlotte. PEO rep came and called on me, used a PEO for several years. It helped me operationally and financially. It was a good move. Sold that company in 2009, ended up going to work with Insperity, which was the original PEO, to the marketplace in 2011. Really thought it was going to be a bridge job, get to meet a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people like you guys. Here we are 15 years later, I'm still in the space. But the PEO industry has evolved. I would argue that when I first started using a PEO and when I first started working with Insperity, that it was a fully functioning outsourced HR department. That has changed over time, as well as the ICP for PEOs. I would say in 2011, the ICP was kind of the mom and pop, 25 to 7,500 employee, privately held businesses. That's changed a lot. ICP is now 5 employee startups, 2 or 3 or 4,000 employee private equity backed roll-ups, and sort of everything in between. But what a PEO is today is a HR platform that should bring a lot of compliance factors and shift a lot of compliance off of a business. It should help them contain costs in some ways that they can't do on their own, specifically health insurance, big math problem in small businesses. And at the end of the day, a PEO ought to help a company increase and enhance enterprise value in an organization, which plays right into our relationship, because you're trying to help companies increase and improve their enterprise value of a small privately held business, and a PEO ought to be doing the same thing in its core function. But really, it's a platform that includes compliance, benefits, cost containment, and multi-state compliance in a way that small businesses just can't do on their
own. You use we do it all the time too, right? You used ICP. Mm-hmm. ICP stands for?
Ideal Client Profile.
There you go. So
Yeah.
that's what
Gotta
I
think
thought.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So you mentioned a previous company that you're at, which was Insperity, which was a PEO,
Yep.
and you've got a new company that you're with.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about the difference, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, the PEO industry, again, it's changed a lot. There are now 400 and something PEOs operating in the United States. They all have their different nuances, their different insurance carriers, their different billing methodologies. It's complicated and complex, right? So I was at Insperity for, like I said, almost 13 years. Great run. My wife still works there, so my best friends still work there. But with so many different organizations that really pitch the same thing, it didn't make a lot of sense for me to work for one company anymore, because there was just too many clubs, and I felt like I was playing 18 holes of golf with a 7-iron. Some holes, great club. Putting, not so much. So I went to work with Pair PEO. We are a PEO broker. I had known my business partner now, Jeff Warner, for almost 10 years when I left. And on the broker side, we're different. Instead of trying to sell somebody a PEO product or any other product in the marketplace, companies come to us and they say, hey, look, we want to shop the PEO marketplace. We just don't really know how to do it. We don't have the time to do it. We don't have the expertise. We don't have the team. Show us what's out there. So we build a needs-based RFP. We shop it out to a portfolio that we have of about 25 PEOs instead of 200 or 300 or 400 or how many are there's out there today, and try to help a company find the best one for them. And we do all that for free. So 400 PEOs in the marketplace. It's a lot. There's probably 2,000 independent PEO brokers that are in the marketplace. There's only a handful that are actually growing, scaling, investable businesses. So we kind of sit in that little quadrant. And then we help companies shop it out, and we do all that for free. So the difference really between, to answer your question specifically, between what I did before was try to bring people into the marketplace and help them understand the value of the company that I worked for. Now companies come to us, they really understand the value of what a PEO could bring to the table. They just want help trying to find the right one.
Industries, are there industries that it works really well in? So I own a home construction business, or I own a technology company, or I own a plumbing business. Are there things that it works, or oil and gas development? Are there things that works well, things where it doesn't work?
It depends on who you ask. At the end of the day, PEOs solve a big math problem. The math problem being, the cost of HR operational costs and how that impacts bottom line EBITDA and enterprise value in the company at the end of the day. It really becomes more of a mindset ICP than an industry ICP. If you went and looked at some study, or you asked Claude or GPT, like, what industries work really well, it would give you the same thing that everybody else would say. But we've got clients in all 50 states. We've got clients that are really, really blue collar industrial. We've got clients that are SaaS and tech and CPA firms and nonprofits and everything in between. There's really not an industry great fit, or maybe there are industries that are better fits, but there's really not an industry that's just like a terrible fit at this point in time.
It's funny you say nonprofit. I didn't really think about, but they have HR issues too, right?
Everybody does.
Yeah. So size, does it matter? Like number of employees, is that an important component?
Does size matter? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, does size matter? It's number of employees, yeah?
Who left first? Who is it? I see that. Like, let's see your biceps. Or they matter?
Yeah. The youngest guy in the room.
They don't matter. Again, this has evolved. 10 years ago, if you'd asked me this, I'd have said and PEOs are different. They're not revenue based. Like a lot of times you talk to companies like, oh, we're 5 to 50 million, or we're 10 to 500 million, or pick a number. PEOs are headcount based. So Instagram was a 10 employee company that sold for $1 billion, right? So, right. I know. Yeah, me too. Here I'm selling PEOs. Could just put pictures online and let teenagers.
Yeah.
Click it.
We got a good idea.
Swipe left
What can
or
we
right
do
or
that
whatever.
makes 10 employees 10? Yeah, that would have been nice.
It's coming.
Yeah. Where were you on that one for me, Matt?
That was before vibe coding.
Yeah.
Like Claude didn't even exist back then. So, but no, size, employee headcount. 10 years ago, 25 to 7,500 employees, something like that was a really sweet spot and probably took up 90% of the PEO market space as far as size wise. But now we have clients that are 3 or 4 or 5 employees and they don't have to be 3 or 4 or 5 employees that are SaaS startups that are going to grow to a couple hundred. We have small mom and pop businesses, financial planning, shops that just have 3 or 4 employees and that's it. And we've got clients that are 3 or 4 or 5,000 employees, which makes it a pretty unique industry to be in because there's not a lot of industries that a company with 5 employees, a nonprofit with 5 employees, it's not going to grow, would buy the exact same product that a company that's 4,000 employees, multi-billion-dollar private equity backed growing acquisition roll-up type company that would buy the exact same product off the shelf. Different buying reason, same product. So the industry doesn't really matter. The size doesn't really matter. It's more about, does the owner, the CFO, or the decision makers really want to go down this path of outsourcing? That's more than the psychographic profile matters, I think, more than things that you look at in normal business industries.
So the makeup of a business owner is they're an entrepreneur, right? I mean, most business owners are entrepreneurs. We started something because we wanted to create something, and we wanted to create something for ourselves. We wanted to create something for others. We thought we had an idea that was driving value to our end clients, right? Yep. Which ultimately means we're control freaks. And so when I think of, and when we talk about this, right, we've had this conversation a couple of times, when I think of giving up some of that control around the HR component of it, how much control are businesses actually giving up? Just kind of dive into that for a minute.
Yeah, that's a good question. And we run into that frequently, and I can speak from experience. So first time somebody pitched PEO to me, I literally thought it may be illegal. It's like, what is this co-employment thing? You mean we both employ the employee? So kind of step back. The cornerstone of PEO is co-employment. So co-employment means, a business takes their employee pool of 20 or 200 or 220 or 2,000, and they put them into a big pool with the PEO's clients. So they have buying power. So it shares buying power, shares resources, shares liability, right? So when I first heard that, I literally thought it was illegal. Like, how do you do this?
I'm not giving you my employees. They're my employees. I hired them. I don't want to take them anywhere.
I spent 10 years building all this risk. Why would I give it to somebody else at this point? Like, this is my business. It's my baby. I was a control freak, still a little bit of a control freak, even though I was in outsource, right? I was outsourced IT, and our pitch was, increased efficiencies, limited risk, and, improve operating efficiencies. Same thing PEOs do, but I thought co-employment was kind of crazy. But when you step back and look at it, you're shifting a lot of liability off of your plate as an owner, or as a founder, or as a CFO that stays up at night trying to figure out multi-state compliance or whatever. But to answer your question more specifically, I feel like in a lot of ways you get more control over your business when you outsource this to a PEO, because it's kind of the E-Myth approach, right? You get to move a lot of this, administrative function, a lot of this HR function, a lot of this compliance function off of your plate, or off of your CFO's plate, or even off of your HR team's plate, so that they can go focus on what drives revenue, right? Or what really makes an impact in the business. Like, it doesn't make you money, get it off your plate. Compliance doesn't really make you money. So
no,
it does not. Just, it's tax time. What's today's date, by the way?
Happy April 15th. So we cheers, everybody. Should cheers to
cheers.
See you later tax time.
Yeah, 18th.
Or maybe extend tax time to April 15th or October 15th, whatever day.
Quick raise of hands. How many people filed an extension today? Okay.
A month ago?
How many people are investors that got their K1 on time?
Sorry, Chris.
This is not a cheers drink. This is like a me neither. So, but in the PEO space, the owner, the business, they retain full direction and control over their organization. Means they can hire, fire, manage the people the way they want to. They can pay them the way they want to. They can acquire companies. They can carve out business units. They can go into joint ventures. They can go public. There's really no limitation to it. It's more of, in the co-employment model, the PEO becomes what's known as the administrative employer of record. So they're responsible for federal compliance, multi-state compliance. Anything the government says you have to do because you have employees, DOL, EEO, ACA, pick a 3-letter word, not a 4-letter word. That goes away. And reality, business owners ought to be able to free up their time and focus more on things that help them drive, top line revenue and be more strategic in the organization, like the E-Myth, versus stuck in administration and compliance worlds.
You mean the letter I got from the NCDOR 2 days ago for underpayment penalty and interest on payroll taxes wouldn't have come to me?
Yeah, just that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Charlotte's an interesting city too, because I lived in Atlanta. There, it's 120 miles anywhere you go outside of Atlanta to get to another state. Charlotte sits right on the border of South Carolina. So you have service industries, HVAC, pest control, construction, roofing, plumbing, a lot of those services businesses that have employees that are doing services in both states. Well, the PEO becomes responsible for filing those payroll taxes in the state that the job is actually performed in. And we've seen that too, where, all of a sudden a payroll company or the state of South Carolina shows up and says, hey, this company's on Westinghouse in Charlotte. They've done $7 million worth of work in South Carolina for the past couple of years, and no payroll taxes have been paid there. It's been paid to North Carolina, hadn't been paid to South Carolina. So somebody's got to come in. That's when they call you. That's your phone ringing at 5 o'clock on a Friday on April 14th.
Yeah. We got an email from the SEC at 3:50 this afternoon. It happened to be just an event notification, so it wasn't, but it scared the poop out of me. So
yeah,
I hate compliance.
Yeah. I can guarantee you that compliance and health insurance is not what wakes me up every day to go be in the PEO industry. It really is more that, me personally, I'm a coach at heart, coach my kids' sports. I know you've done the same thing, so I get along so well. But I like to see people develop. I like to see businesses develop. And benefits and compliance and payroll and stuff like that kind of falls into PEO does not wake me up in the morning. But it's that end game. It's watching this company exit. It's watch this company raise another round. It's watch this company risk everything and max out their credit cards, borrow money from their family, bet on themselves, and get to a point where, all right, we're a growing company. And if I can be involved in that piece at just a little level and my little slice of the pie and the vertical they're working in, I love that piece. It just happens to be compliance driven and payroll and benefits and vendors.
Yeah. So we've talked about this a little bit too, but when we think about HR, we think about payroll, we think about health insurance, we think about different aspects of a business. And one of the first things that popped into my mind was, wait a second, and this isn't the case, but if it was the case, my sister-in-law is in charge of payroll. I don't want to have to fire my sister-in-law, so therefore we can never hire a PEO. But y'all do payroll. So how do the services, what can we turn it on and off switches, or do we go back to some PEOs are better at not having to handle payroll or not having to do the 401k or not having to do this or not having to do that? How easy is it for that 30, 40, 50 person landscape, plumbing, electrical company to continue to retain some aspect of their operations internally?
It's a great question.
Not that it's in their best interest. It might still be in their best interest for me to fire my sister-in-law, but it might not be good for the Thanksgiving dinner, but it might be better for the business.
Well, if she gets a bigger K1 on time at Thanksgiving, then maybe so. Who knows? PEOs aren't really built to replace HR. They're really built to work alongside HR and enhance HR. And if your sister-in-law is running payroll and that's what she loves to do, like somebody's still got to press the button with a payroll company like, hey, we process payroll. It's just a function. I mean, most companies are either doing it through QuickBooks payroll, they're doing it through Paychex or Paycom or Paylocity or Pay something, whatever. So there's still like that outsourced component. It's not like they're calculating FICA and FUI and SUI and deductions and like all that stuff on their own. So there's some kind of function. It's just saying, all right, well, what if we just replace a pay with a PEO that includes payroll and can help you be more strategic in your role. So, and we have clients that have like big, fully functioning HR departments, 10 or 12 or 13 people in a big company that runs HR, but this still brings some value to it. They don't want to have compliance. The health insurance component, could save a big company, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So they can take that, reallocate it in other areas of the business. I mean, it may make sense. They may or may not. And we get that question sometimes too. Like, can I just fire my HR manager? Yeah, but you're going to have to do it. Like somebody's going to have to do it. Like the PEO really becomes, the navigator, like the guardrails. We're going to keep you from running any potholes, but somebody still has to drive the bus. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
That's a good question.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, essentially, do they, can you flick on and off buttons with different PEOs?
Yes. So, and again, that's kind of why I left Insperity when I did, was because there's so many different players that are out there. Some are like all inclusive. It's really hard to turn things off. Some are not. So it really just depends on a case by case basis. And that's why companies come to us. They say, hey, look, this is what we're trying to accomplish. These are the outcomes that we're looking for. This is what we currently do. What could be improved? And go find us the right fit. So some of them are tweaks. I'm working on one right now that's a company that ramps up from about 20 full-time employees 12 months out of the year. And over the summer months, they hire about 120 seasonal or part-time people. All right, well, if we're just looking at this business, case at 19 full-time employees that are there 12 months out of the year, the math makes sense one way. But if you bring in 100 people that are not benefits eligible, there's no real, math offsets and like what a PEO can bring. It's very expensive for them to do it. And this is a nonprofit. So like that's not really a great PEO fit for more math problems than operational or functional problems. They could use a PEO functionally, operationally, it would probably improve it. But they can't afford to spend another, $75,000 a year on top of what they're doing right now for this group of summertime people. And that's really what they deliver. They work 12 months out of the year to deliver a product that's 4 months old.
But that's how the brokerage is helping.
100%. So that's how we can go in and say, let's thread together the right deal. So.
I forget who I was talking to earlier. Somebody was talking about marriages, and I think maybe Gerald. I think we were talking about 54% of first marriages fail. Was it 42% of second marriages? 2/3 of second marriages, and then 3/4 of third. Yeah, Gerald's been happily married.
All that sounds expensive, very expensive.
Yeah, Gerald's been happily married for almost 50 years. I shouldn't say almost 50 because I might age Gerald, but Gerald was very young. So I mean, not all marriages work, right? And you talk about co-employment. I'm still wrapping my head around what co-employment means. How does it break up, right? Like how messy does it become if I say, look, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to walk down this path, and then, oh gosh, I can't get out of this. I'm stuck in this thing forever.
It's like any marriage. You don't want to like go in with a prenup, right? Maybe it's smart, but
sometimes you do.
Yeah, not the first marriage.
Not the first one.
First marriage you marry for love, second marriage you marry for money. So, but it's funny. Like I do a lot of work on LinkedIn. If you guys go to our LinkedIn page, we do a lot of commercials. So we use Spherical Media as our media company. They're here in Charlotte. They're freaking fantastic. If they can make me presentable, then they do a really good job. You should check them out.
They've got a good makeup artist.
What's that?
They've got a good makeup artist.
A really good makeup artist. But we did a video not too long ago on the haircut versus the tattoo. My business partner, Jeff, by the way, does not have hair like me and you. It's completely bald. So the fact that he's talking about haircuts in the PEO industry.
I'm faking it. He's real. He's got no hair.
Half and half.
Yeah,
You're good. I'm back here. You're up. Yes. But tattoos permanent, right? Haircut's not permanent. It's going to grow back. So that's kind of our approach. The PEO does not have to be lifelong. It does not have to be a marriage. As a matter of fact, I think that if you've been with a PEO, the same PEO, and you haven't benchmarked what the marketplace has out there every 24 to 36 months, you're probably leaving a lot of money on the table. The way that, technology is changing things and integrations and the way companies need to be able to integrate with their operating systems and their ERPs and Fixer and AI and Claude and all that stuff. There's some that's really pushing the envelope and there's some that's not so much. So that, tattoo, the permanent marriage piece may be fading faster in the next 24 months in the PEO industry than it has in the past. But our particular approach is we need to constantly be benchmarking this. And, in our world, we do the project management. If you transition from one PEO to the other, we help manage that whole process. We own customer success. We own the renewals. So we're really trying to take that whole, project management, implementation, change management piece off of our clients too. So even if they come to us and say, hey, look, we're going to move to a PEO for the first time or the second time or whatever, 2 or 3 years down the road, we want to constantly be in their back pocket saying, let's make sure that we have, the right PEO in place for you right now at the right time with the right integrations, the right carriers, fit your demographics, fit your price points. There's a lot that goes into it. But we've got the expertise and the track record to prove it too. So, Pair PEO, we just celebrated our 7-year anniversary. Thank you. Raise your hand if you were at our party. 1, 2, all right. Saved a couple lives. All right, cool. We've got some clients that came on board with us with, one particular, it's a software company here in Charlotte. They came on board with Pair PEO with a PEO for the first time in 2019, had 22 employees. They've now got about 270 employees. They are paying less for health insurance right now than they were in 2019. For better plans, they've grown, they've 10x'd their growth. We've probably saved them $2-3 million in healthcare costs, which have helped them grow. But we've also switched their PEO platforms 2 different times along the way too. So we've said, okay, 3 years in, this is where you've at. You've kind of creep back up in HR operational costs. Let's go back to market. Let's look at another one. We manage the change management. It stays low. I mean, what do you do when you're a growing SaaS company in Charlotte selling enterprise software when you have $2 or $3 million in your pocket every year that you wouldn't have had in the open market? Makes you a more valuable organization. If they decide to exit, they decide to raise a round. They've never raised a round at this point. But if they did, their multiple would be higher than it would have been if they just stayed open market. And they listened to our coaching along the way.
So most small business owners end up transitioning their business in some way or another, right? So they're either gonna sell it to kids, they're gonna sell it to an ESOP, they're gonna sell it to a strategic, and in some cases they're gonna sell it off to a private equity group, right? Yep. And I go back to control, right? How do other people view the fact that I have a pair or that I have a PEO sitting underneath it? Is it a positive? Is it a negative? Does it help? Does it hurt? How is it seen in the acquisition marketplace?
Good point. Everybody has a different opinion, right? It's kind of like when you were talking about HR. If we asked everybody in this room what HR meant to them, they'd probably have a different answer. Talk to a recruiter, HR means recruiting. Talk to workers' comp and safety, they're OSHA. You talk to benefits, their participation and whatever. But as far as the strategic world is concerned, private equity knows PEO, right? ACG, you guys know ACG. They use a PEO. They've been involved with PEOs forever. The National Venture Conference Association, they use a PEO as an organization. They recognize that these companies, what they're trying to do is create enterprise value, and they recognize that companies that are using a PEO tend to be more valuable than don't. There's some statistics I could throw out. They grow twice as fast. They're more profitable. They, But at the end of the day, PEOs, they move a lot of compliance off, right? So you're not like going back to the table in the deal room trying to figure out Nexus in the state that charges Nexus or sales tax. There's no crazy workers' comp claims. A lot of these blue collar roll-ups, HVAC, roofing, pick one, plumbing, electrical, like there's some potential workers' comp stuff there. They typically have less turnover, so there's some soft costs there. So back up, big picture, private equity and strategic investors, they look at a PEO client and they're like, all right, there's less risk there. I'm not going to run into like some bee's nest and I'm going to have to go back and like reevaluate or, have a chargeback or add back or something like that in the deal room. When there's PEO, it tends to be kind of buttoned up because the PEO is taking on some of that risk along the way too. And I think they tend to look at it as this is a easier deal, better deal, less due diligence up front. HR due diligence is done. Compliance diligence is done. It's a easier way for us to move this thing forward. And they tend to be more profitable.
Yeah. So profit helps for the owner, right?
Yeah.
So if it's priced off, multiple, then a higher multiple or a higher value means higher exit.
Or on the acquisition side, like there's less risk.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
It's like I don't have to my team doesn't have to do as much diligence on this because I know that there's certain aspects of it that have to be buttoned up.
Yeah. So you move the needle from a 4.8 to a 5.2 or whatever it might end up being, right?
One more multiple is a big difference.
Yeah. So, so it's funny. We had a call a couple weeks ago with a client of ours, and we were talking about how they offer health insurance, but the health insurance uptake that they have isn't really high. And you walk through how 1 month the PEO might look at that negatively, and another month the PEO might look at that and say, we don't care. So how do you help the owner, or how are you able to better negotiate than the owner can, or understand that mechanism, right? We think about life insurance, right? We've got a couple of great life insurance folks here in town or in the room that understand that marketplace really well, and they see the health questionnaire, the results or whatever from the doctor, and they instantaneously know we're going to go to this company rather than this company. How do you know that same thing?
That's the art piece of it, with so many PEOs that are out there, and the big number becomes health insurance, right? That's the biggest math problem in small businesses in a lot of ways. It's the most inflationary line item in the United States, next to maybe arguably college education. And I've got a sophomore at Tennessee and a senior in high school. So like that is something I'm really dialed into. And health insurance is really close to that, right? But the way PEOs work too is kind of different too. And that's where our world sits a little different, because you got 400 PEOs. And one thing that they do for health insurance, they bundle health insurance, right? Well, when you bundle, 13, 14, 15,000 small businesses onto one health insurance plan too, sometimes you're going to have somebody that gets really sick. You're going to have some people that are, running claims up. So you might have priced a company low. All of a sudden, the PEO's master plan has jumbo claims that's adding on to it. So it's really, it goes in cycles. Like you'll have some PEOs that are operating really well and being really aggressively priced for 1 or 2 or 3 years, and all of a sudden they have some claims that, you know, catch up with them. And I think that goes back to our don't marry your PEO approach. If they're being aggressive and we can help maintain, you know, price points for a period of time, and then move a company to another PEO at some point in time down the road, if that starts to change. And it could change quarter by quarter. Like we'll go run an RFP for a group, 100 employee CPA firm, white collar, you know, low risk. We'll run it in Q1. We'll have one set of answers across 10 or 12 or 20 different PEOs. We'll run that exact same company with the exact same demographics and the exact same censuses 6 months later and have 20, 30% difference in price points. So it's our job our job as a PEO broker is to keep our thumb on the pulse of the industry, all the different PEOs that are kind of operating out there. A lot of times we'll tell, you know, companies that come to us in Q1 or Q2, we need to push this off for a couple of quarters and just see what it looks like. So, again, most small businesses just don't have the expertise or the time or the people to be able to do that. And that's where we try to come in and take it off their hands.
So I read Matt my questions ahead of time about 12 minutes before we started. I was supposed to send them to him a week ago so he could see what they were.
Tax time.
Yes, I told him
I love William. It's okay.
It's not my fault. It's tax fault.
It's like the drum solo. It's okay. It goes a little long.
And so my question is, you know, I'm out there in Kansas, and Matt was like, why are we in Kansas? And I was like, I don't know why we're in Kansas. Just it's the middle of nowhere, right? But I'm out there in Kansas. I'm like a small business owner. I'm hearing you talk about health insurance as a cost and the inflationary aspect of it, and you can help manage that, right? And so I'm like super excited. I'm like, ooh, I want to manage my health insurance. My health insurance costs suck. But then they pick up the phone and they call you tomorrow and they start talking, and 3 sentences in, they're like, you say, well, this isn't going to work. Are there like big red flags for businesses that are like instantaneous, like, don't call me, call him?
That's a good question. Personally,
besides the jerk, right? Nobody wants to deal with jerks.
No, well, yeah. So you've heard me say this too. I think that all of us in this room, you get to a point in your career where you're like, you know, I have to work with jerks anymore. So, but there are some red flags, but it's different for some people than it is to me personally, because at our company, we do 99.9% of our business through referrals, personal introductions, somebody that trusts you, that you transfer this trust over to me, and you say, I want you to take care of them. Okay, great. I'm going to. And if you're a 2 employee, 3 employee, is that a great fit? Is that like a giant revenue mover for us? Nope, not at all. But I'll treat them the exact same way. I may tell them that the PEO is not the right fit for them, but I'm going to go try to find them the right, you know, solution and thread something together for them, because you've transferred that trust to me, right? If I do a good job, you never know. Their wife or sister or mother may be the CFO of a friggin' 1,000-person company in, you know, Indiana, which I would never have uncovered. I'm not prospecting companies, and we don't prospect. I'm not even prospecting anybody in Indiana. But if I did a really good job with your sister on this little small 3-person group, it wasn't a great PEO fit, then it helps everybody. And I think a rising tide lifts all ships. And that's really been my approach as far as business is concerned. Believe it or not, I'm really not, you know, comfortable sitting up here with a microphone. The beer, like, kind of
it helps, doesn't it?
It definitely helps. I'm way more introverted than most people would actually think. But at the end of the day, like, if you believe in me and you trust me enough to introduce me to your sister or brother, and we get a lot of those kind of deals, then I want to treat them like they're, you know, the president of the United States, and I'm going to treat them good. And that tends to play out really well in our space.
They both have really big skeletons in the closet. They'll never make it to president. Yeah.
I'm not running for office. I can tell you that much.
So wrap up. This came in third party. How do you respond to a CEO who says our HR isn't broken, it's just expensive?
I agree.
So that's HR.
Yeah. Everybody's HR is expensive. People are expensive. It also matters by geography. Like we're in Charlotte, like downtown Charlotte, go pick a company. It's going to cost you one thing, exact same company, exact same footprint, exact same revenue in Statesville, wildly different HR costs. So again, our job is to try to find the right one. PEOs are not designed to replace HR. So, if it's not broken, great. But no HR company no HR team is going to wake up and be like, we've got compliance completely buttoned up. We never have to worry about it. It never has to be touched again. Done. Goes away. If there's a way, it's like pooling. It's economies of scale. You have that same 30-person company, whatever they're doing in South End, they've got 30 units of buying power. That's their economies of scale. Plug into a PEO, you got 300,000 units of buying, so like you don't have to really make any changes to your HR processes or procedures or anything, but you can shift a lot of this over and save, 25% on your HR operational costs. It makes you a more valuable organization just signing the documents. You don't have to change anything.
Ooh, one more. Sorry.
All right, let's keep going.
How long does it? So I say yes. How long does it take to start?
Start what?
Yeah.
It depends. Like you want to evaluate a PEO, it's probably going to take you 4 to 6 weeks.
Yep.
Right. And if you look at 4 or 5 PEOs, that's probably going to take you 40 to 60 hours. So our value proposition up front is let's take that down to 30 minutes. Let's understand what you're really trying to accomplish. Let's build a needs-based RFP. Let's shop it out for you. One set of data, and then we come back and we kind of back into the math problem. You're a 100-person group looking at what we're looking at based off what you're currently doing. It's a $400,000 savings, right? We've taken that 4 to 6 week process just to get the price point to, a 2-hour period of time. And it's a huge number. And then, you still need to demo their platform. That's an hour. You finalize your proposal. That's an hour. So you're talking about 2.5, 3, 4 hours, something like that, to get to a point where you're ready to sign a CSA. And then the implementation is 30, 45 days. So not a huge time, but it's worth the money.
So I don't have to wait for my health insurance to end.
No renewal dates.
There's none of that. It's just pricing, understand it, sign, 30 to 60 days to be on the new platform.
Yep. And that would be whether the implementation piece would be whether you did it on your own or use us to, PM it. But yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Awesome. Okay.
And there's no real reason. There is a misconception. They're like, I see people, and this happens all the time, where a company is going to say, we want to look at this, but we want to wait until our renewal hits, our health insurance renewal hits. Well, the way PEOs work is kind of interesting too. So if you're within a certain window of when your health insurance renews, then the PEO is going to want to see the health insurance renewal and base all their pricing off of that.
Because they want to see how your exposure was in the last 12 months.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's not uncommon to see 40, 50, 60, 70, 100+% increases in health insurance. And every single year we have somebody that says that we're going to wait until our renewal hits. And they get a renewal that's $1 million increase. Well, the new PEO doesn't want to touch that, or they're going to reprice it, and where you may have had a $500,000 reduction in HR operational costs, all of a sudden you've got $1 million increase in operational cost. And out of those 400 PEOs, 395 of them are going to say no. They don't want you to jump on their book of business. And the other 5 are going to say yes, but it's going to be a lot more expensive. And all right, so your insurance just went up by $1 million. Big deal, big not deal. Well, if you're a venture-backed company with a 4X multiple, that's actually a $4 million increase. And if you're looking at it as enterprise value, it's actually $4 million in, depreciated or like cut enterprise value versus $4 million in positive enterprise value. You're talking about an $8 million swing next time you raise, a round, or the next time, or if you decide to exit, if you're, shopping this out. I mean, it can be huge numbers. And I mean, I say that's 100-person group. It could be a $4, $5, $6, $8, $10 million swing in value. And that impacts everybody. I mean, picking on front row guy up here, Kenny, like he just exited he was with a company that just exited. They did really well. But if they had taken a $4 million or $8 million swing in enterprise value when they exited, you might not be sitting on the front row right now. So it's impactful.
Yeah.
But I would not wait until your health insurance is getting ready to renew, your workers' comp's getting ready, your current PEO is not getting ready to renew. Look at it 4, 5, 6 months out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you use the venture-backed example, which is great because numbers are big, right? We all, the larger the numbers are, the more impactful it is. But when you go back to blue collar business out there, and we're talking about a $50 or $75 or $100,000 increase in health insurance premiums that you end up saving. That's $100,000 in their back pocket. They're going to sell their business in 3 years. That's $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in enterprise value that they picked up on a 3, 4, 5 year or 3, 4, 5 times multiple. I mean, that's real money in somebody's back pocket too.
Yeah, that's your family. That's what you did it for.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how you work. You know how I work. I mean, for me, it's all about our family. Like we're trying to.
Do you work?
Huh?
Do you work?
I do. You see this belly?
Yeah.
This is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's called working for me. But no, I mean, think about to that person too. I mean, they risked everything to be able to create a life of significance for their family, whether it's blue collar or white collar. You don't have to be SaaS to like risk everything for your family, the same amount of risk, And if that risk is blue collar in Salisbury or Harrisburg or Richburg, South Carolina, it's the same amount of risk when it comes down to it. Like you can't sleep at night. Your family can't live the life that you have not necessarily promised them, but like you're working like a dog in a lot of cases. And I mean, you've done this entrepreneurial thing to be able to do something a little bit better, not just to buy yourself a job.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what it's really all about is, these risk takers, these entrepreneurs, these small, medium sized, whether it's a middle market SaaS company that's raised a couple of rounds, like there's a lot of people with their livelihoods on the line here. And if they can sleep better at night and create a more significant life for their family at some point in time down the road, and that's really what this whole thing's all about. It's what you do. It's what I do too. It's what wakes us up in the morning.
Yeah. No. So so we'll open it up for questions. I don't know if there's any questions from, we always joke that we have a global corporate headquarters, despite the fact we only have one office with 4 people in it. But so any questions from our global corporate audience, Caitlin?
Any questions come in?
Yeah. No.
Did any come in from Rootville, Georgia?
Yeah.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah.
Oh no, all right, that's where I grew up. So,
anyways,
you have 25 that you're working with. At some point, it kind of can seem a little bit commoditized around just numbers. And how do you help establish other value points within other PEOs that hey, this one may be a few $1,000s more expensive, but there's X, Y, and Z values? Are there other value levers that you're helping as well evaluate during the process? As opposed to just like straight, I get it, the numbers are big in some cases, but you may be willing to spend a little bit more because they're getting this service or they have this, whatever.
yeah, there's a lot of nuances to it. There's so many levers. I mean, really, the PEO combines about 30 different industries into one package. Right? They all build differently. So like the one that I mentioned earlier with the seasonal employees, there's probably 10 different PEOs that can categorize those 90 or 100 employees in a different way that impact the money. Some PEOs literally bill by the day. So you have like 6 employees, by pay period. So you may have somebody that just works like 6 days in a biweekly pay period. They're only getting billed for those 6 days. You may have some that are only, per employee per month. So that same employee that worked for 6 days gets billed at like a full rack rate of a full-time 40-hour employee that worked for 31 days. So that shifts the narratives, retail, hospitality, construction, the restaurants, there's a lot of different ways. So, again, like if you went to just like one particular PEO as a restaurant with 35 full-time employees that are kind of corporate and 200 part-time employees that are working night shifts and day shifts and opening and sous chefs or whatever, it becomes really complicated. And I think that's where, CFOs or owners, they just get bound, overwhelmed with it. And they're like, I don't know, like somebody came and pitched me this. It sounds good, like cost savings. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, doesn't integrate with my ERP, doesn't deliver the services I want. It's more expensive than I actually thought it was. That's when you need somebody on your side that sits down with you, like life insurance or, and a lot of other services. It's like, all right, there's 15 different fintechs that are out there that does this particular one, but there's only 2 that integrate with what we're trying to, Okta, right? Or Sage Intact 2, not Sage Intact, but Sage Intact 2, right? And you need to find the right one. And unfortunately, the PEO rep or payroll rep or benefits rep, like they don't really know the difference between Sage and Sage Intact 2 either. So your CFO does, your accounting manager does, your wife does. I know she does. You got to find the right one at the right time, and that's really where we sit on the client side. The buy side makes a big difference. Like, all right, well, let's help you buy this, better. The kindergarten analogy, like kindergartens can't drive, but I'm like, all right, your spouse wants to buy a brand new 2026 full-size black SUV. All right, you've got like the Expedition, you've got the Tahoe, you've got the Escalade, you've got the Sequoia. What else is there? There's probably like 3 or 4 more, right?
Yeah, I'm at a loss there.
Right.
Yeah, you did a good job though.
But the analogy is,
you got the Infinity, the QX80. Yeah.
You can spend every Saturday for the next couple of months going to the Chevy dealership and the Ford dealership and like test driving all these things. And they're like, all right, which one do you like best, honey? She forgot. And they're like, all right, we're back to the Ford and the Tahoe. It's like, all right, fine. And then you have to go through finance and all that stuff. Like what we do on the PEO broker side is your spouse comes to you and says, I want this, full-size black PEO. Well, we show up in your driveway with all 6 options and their finance manager and their sales manager. And they're like, here's the car, solid thunk of the doors, all the value, and negotiate the best price in your driveway. They take your, trade in and drive off in it. And you've got a brand new Tahoe. Spouse is happy. You're happy. Easier to do. Made a lot of money.
Everybody likes the Tahoe, right? So
I drive Suburban.
Huh? You
Suburban.
like the Sequoia?
Yeah.
I mean, Toyota, good car. So, Gerald?
Great question. And I'll tell you this, that health insurance premiums have been big, especially over the past like 10 or 15 years. Ancillary benefits over the past 5 or 6 years have been just as important. There are companies that are leaving their insurance brokers, and I'm talking like the big ones, the NFPs, the USIs, they're partners with us, not throwing them under the bus, because they don't have pet insurance or cyber insurance or, Geico type stuff, like these employee discounts that really impact the day-to-day living and the money that your employees keep in your pocket. And I think that these days the talent market is shaped up to the point where an employee will switch from one employer to another if it just feels like it's making their life easier. And a lot of times that goes into the life locks. And I mean, I'm not kidding. I had it's a very profitable, growing venture-backed med tech company here in Charlotte. And they switched from one PEO to the other because 95% of their employees was asking for pet insurance. They couldn't get through. I know. I mean, they made an entire HRIS and benefits platform switch over pet insurance. I've had other ones that, some PEOs will not allow you to run expenses through their platform without like processing it through like payroll taxes and stuff like that. Some will. We do a lot of travel and expenses too, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like I mentioned. So like the PEO that we use internally lets us process expenses and pay subcontractors, which we do all our business through subs, through the platform. Other PEOs don't. So there's a lot of like those little small ancillary benefits that get, factored in to the employee experience, which helps companies attract and retain talent, which is one of the primary reasons these days that, people are using PEOs to start with. You can get Fortune 500 employee experience at a small business price.
John?
What are a couple of things that you just went to pet insurance that are surprising that PEOs are now doing? It might have thought that in the co-employment model that the employer would have considered sacred, but maybe they fumble the ball sometimes, and so the PEOs are now starting to bleed into that sacred area. Because they do it more maybe from automation and AI point of view, or they just do it in a way that the co-employer just fumbled the ball.
Yeah, that happens too. And, again, there's 400 operating right now. There's disruptive technology that's popping up all the time. I mean, we're building an AI platform internally. We just raised a friends and family round that closed today. There's at least 3 other companies in Charlotte that's kind of in that same space, like disruptive space, that will eventually either sell to a PEO or have more data than a PEO has on their own. And like, data is expensive and data is valuable these days. So there's a lot of change that's happening so fast. And again, when I was sitting at Insperity, that was a great organization, great run. My wife still works there. They're a great partner of ours, but there's dozens of PEOs that are popping up that are just tech plays. There's not a pure AI PEO yet, but it'll probably happen sooner rather than later. I mean, there's not a pure law firm yet, pure exit planner yet, but like being able to be nimble enough to stay in front of all that stuff has been very helpful for us, and our clients lean into it to us.
So we're going to wrap up, and you've got a question? Yep, Lisa has a question. Long-time viewer, first-time questioner.
Dave Ramsey, thank you.
Question about ACA. If you're still the employer of record, why don't you go to ACA? Under ACA, I still have I'm responsible for doing all the reporting and failing on that. Why don't
Great question. So as far as liability is concerned with a PEO, there's really kind of 3 stages, right? There's like completely shared, you've shifted the compliance piece to the PEO. ACA happens to be one of those, right? So the way that federal compliance works for most PEOs is they are literally filing all of your payroll taxes, all your compliance, DOL, ACL, everything on their EIN, right? So there's a firewall at the federal level for a company, a PEO that's certified with the IRS. That goes away, right? A lot of companies still get the flexibility, depends on the PEO they're working with, and HR works a lot of times in the fine print of the gray area, right? So there's like this rule, right? But there's a little bit of way to like massage it, right? Then you have another area of compliance that's more shared, right? And it's the local compliance, like it's different in San Francisco and Austin than it is in Charlotte and Atlanta, right? And then it's kind of like the middle of the road. As far as like ACA is concerned, most of the PEOs, they're putting you on their master health insurance plan, whether it's UHC or Aetna or Blue Cross or whatever. So they are literally compliant for making sure that you're compliant. So that includes, what you contribute to the minimum requirement plans, to the types of plans. None of the insurance plans that you're going to get from an Insperity, an ADP, a TriNet, an Oasis, a Paychex, these big like companies are going to be non-compliant for any company. The real challenge, I think, comes sometimes, not real challenge, but one of the things that comes up is, are you contributing enough as an employer to hit that minimum threshold? And they've got a spreadsheet that goes in, it's like, all right, you need to bump it up by 3%. But why would you do it? It is compliant, and it's probably going to be 20 or 30% off of top line premiums for what a small business is doing on their own right now. Comes a significant number. Mm-hmm. Correct. Yep. So PEOs are going to say, let's say ADP Total Source. They have 500,000 companies that are using their platform. Of those are about 1.5 million employees with an 80% participation rate, right? So you're talking 1.2 million, something like that. That's their buying power for health insurance. A company with 50 people that has 80% insurance, I'm like 40. It's just a math problem. It's economies of scale. It's like, you own a printing company, you go to an organization that like buys paper and toner in bulk, because as that buying group, you get a discount, makes you a more profitable company. Health insurance is the same way. Go to PEO, they're buying 1 million units of something. You're going to get better unit economics and economies of scale that you can't get on your own.
Good question. You can come across the street and ask more good questions if you'd want to, Lisa. Thanks, Matt. Greatly appreciate it. Great conversation, right? The idea here is to unpack topics for business owners. I think Matt did a fantastic job. So thanks for coming out, sharing your expertise and knowledge with us.